There's a misconception that we don't exist, that somehow our ability to excel at the highest level of our industry is limited, that overcoming barriers as a woman of color would be insurmountable. But what would happen if we decided to venture out on our own despite everything we're up against? I'll tell you. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, a healthcare consultant, consulting coach, high performance fanatic, wife, and proud girl mom. I help transform female professionals into thriving solo consultants. And just like you, I'm wearing all the hats and doing all the things. So this podcast is to empower the busy female professionals to move past fear to start and grow a successful consulting business, despite the obstacles you may encounter. We'll dive deep into consulting practice, business strategy, mindset, and more. So grab your cup of coffee or tea if that's your thing, and let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and this episode is going to be a shift from the norm. I want to have more of a conversation with you, maybe even more of a teaching session, if I will kind of categorize it like that. One of the reasons why I thought about having this particular episode be structured this way is because as we're approaching a new year and moving closer into 2024, if you're listening to this in the future, it's December right now. And I think in this season, we're often considering what we can do different for the upcoming year, how we can show up bigger and better. What are the things that we need to do in order to move our businesses forward? If we're just starting our businesses, how do we need to approach that process? If we are trying to reach the next level and maybe even venture beyond just working with clients directly, and we want to get into other avenues of maybe authorship or speaking, whatever it may be, we're thinking about how to do that most effectively. And we're mapping out all of our plans. We're building vision boards. We're creating strategy. We're doing all the things right now. I know I am. I'm definitely guilty of this. I'm doing this myself right now. And what I wanted to do is just share with you my approach to this journey. And then also how I encourage my clients to approach this as well. And because you are listening on this podcast, I consider you to be part of the family. So we're going to all do this together. And I thought about a lot of the lessons that I have learned over the years from studying the work of Clayton Christensen. I was never blessed to meet him in person or even be in his presence. But if you don't know, Clayton Christensen, the late Clayton Christensen, he was a Harvard professor. He is considered to be the father of disruptive innovation. And I have always been in love with his work around how you disrupt the industry, and not disrupt in terms of just making noise for the sake of making noise, but how you do things differently in a way that catches everyone off guard. He really put a spin on the way that we think about things, the way that we approach standing out in the market, the way that we even more effectively market our businesses just in general. And I do think that by thinking about a lot of his concepts and frameworks, I found it to be extremely helpful for me in mapping out my journey. And it's something that I'm using right now to think about how I need to show up as we move forward. Because if we're honest with ourselves, the landscape within business, especially in the online space, has changed tremendously. When we were in the midst and the heart of the pandemic, there were a lot of businesses sprouting up, and there were people that were raking in a lot of cash very easily. There was a lot of money flowing, and just the climate was very different. But one of the negative consequences of that is that there were a lot of people that came into this online space, or even in just business in general, in terms of entrepreneurship, whether they're online or not. They were focused on making money, but not focused on the mission or focused on the quality in terms of the product that they were creating and delivering and the outcomes that they were promising. So it's created this atmosphere where many people are skeptical, and rightfully so. With that being the case, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we have to face that reality as we move forward. We have a audience that is more knowledgeable, is more sophisticated, is not easily swayed. And that means that instead of just selling the same old offers or presenting the same solutions, we need to start thinking out of the box when it comes to creating those things that we want to position to be the heart of our businesses as we move forward. This is going to make a lot more sense in just a moment. I know I may be sounding like I'm rambling just a little bit, but I want you to follow me here in terms of thinking about how we need to begin to disrupt this pattern that's been in place now for the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. We need to get to a point where we're building and establishing more trust with the audiences that we're serving. And we need to reestablish a certain level of expectation that our services are indeed drastically different, measurably different from those who just popped up and started a business overnight without the proper expertise and knowledge in order to truly provide the most transformative result. So, I want this to be us reclaiming our role as consultants, as leaders in terms of critical thinking, problem solving, and really driving this innovation into the future. So that's the whole premise of this. Hoping that all made sense. Now, one of the things that Christensen talked a lot about is this whole concept of jobs to be done. His jobs to be done framework was really something that helped me completely shift my perspective in the way that I view marketing. And at times I can be honest and say that it's easy to lose sight of this concept because it's easy to get caught up thinking about your competition, trying to make an offer or a service be better than someone you know that's offering or doing the same thing. You want to stand out. You want to provide the best client experience. You want to have the best product out there. And one of the things that I remind clients of over and over again is that we need to focus on being different more than we need to focus on being better. And the jobs to be done framework that Christensen developed speaks exactly to that because it helps you not just look at your direct competition or even your indirect competition, but also looking at those solutions to the problem that the client or the customer has created themselves that may be completely oblivious to you, may not even fall in the same category as your business or your service. It is a reflection of what they're deciding to do based upon their daily behaviors. So when we're thinking about the concept of being more disruptive, we have to take those things into account and understand instead of what is someone using as an alternative that may be a competitor of mine, whether they're direct or indirect. The question becomes more so, what is that thing that someone is trying to accomplish? What is the job that the product or service is doing? And it's a complete shift in thinking in this way because you have to think out of the box. You cannot just look at the service or the offer that you're providing and solely think about the outcome that you want to provide or that you have designed that offer to provide. Because when we do it that way, we're overlooking what the job is that the client wants accomplished. So a good example, for instance, when you go out and you buy a cell phone, you're not just buying technology. You're not just buying a cell phone, right? What you're actually buying, the job that cell phone is serving, for me, is a camera, number one. One of the reasons why I do have an Android and an iPhone, because the Android camera is better. I will debate anybody on that. But one of the reasons why I do have that Android, although I will admit that my iPhone has a lot more features that are user friendly and can go hand in hand with my iPad and my laptop and things of that nature. One of the jobs that I needed was a phone that was easily accessible that I had on me at all times. So if you were not considering that element, then that's something that you may not have available, and someone may decide to go in another direction because that job is not being solved for them. For many of us, the cell phone provides a source of entertainment. Or if you do choose to have the iPhone, maybe it's a status symbol. Because we'll be honest, Android users get a lot of flack. So if you are carrying an iPhone, and probably why I have two phones and the other one's an iPhone, is because there's a little bit of a status symbol in having the iPhone. The key is that the phone is not just a phone. It's not just a piece of technology. And so when we're thinking about competition, when we're thinking about alternative options, when we're thinking about how we can improve the service or the product that we're offering, we have to think about the job that people want done when they make that purchase, when they make that investment. One of the best examples that I ever heard was actually an example that Clayton Christensen gave himself. And this was, in essence, a study that they did with milkshakes and purchases from McDonald's. I believe that's the story, or how the story went. But the general, I would say concept was this. They were trying to figure out, why is it that people are buying this milkshake from McDonald's? Why are they going there to get this milkshake in the morning? I mean, admittedly, that's not the healthiest breakfast option, right? And so if you were thinking about how to be more competitive and you had a milkshake that was going to be on the market, you may be thinking, okay, let me make my milkshake healthier. Right? That makes sense, because if people are buying this milkshake that's unhealthy, I'll make one that's healthier. And it's not that that's wrong. That is an option that you can provide. But I want to make a point here. So you can think that way, or you can say, I'm going to make a milkshake that tastes better. And that's also a very legitimate option and a way to create another product. But when they begin to survey many of the customers that were making this decision of buying this milkshake in the morning, one of the things that they found is that they preferred the milkshake for a number of different reasons. So I remember him saying that one of the customers said that I buy the milkshake because I try to eat like a banana in the morning and, some healthier options, but they didn't keep me full. And I found myself a couple of hours later reaching for something else to eat. And I know when I drink this milkshake, I stay full pretty much all morning. I don't need anything to eat until lunchtime. Someone else said, I try to fix like a breakfast in the morning and I'm always on the run, and I'll try and prep it, maybe my overnight oats, and grab this to eat while I'm driving in my car. But I end up dropping it on myself. I may make a stain on my shirt and then I have to worry about that when I get in. When I have this milkshake, I can just sip it through a straw. It's really thick and heavy, and I don't have a lot of spills. It's just super convenient for me to grab and get on the road and get to work. The bottom line is that when you look at the actual customer behavior, you'll find that people are choosing to make that purchase for reasons other than just buying a milkshake, or other than having a tastier milkshake or a healthier milkshake. They are buying based upon the job that they need to be done. And this is why it's so important for us to begin to think like this. We have to think about what drives the client or the customer behavior. And so when we run into difficulty when it comes to selling services and pitching our offers and getting, greater conversions, a lot of it goes back to trying to have a better understanding of the client. And I think we have this misconception that understanding your client means that you've done a focus group or survey and you've gathered information. Those are helpful. But one of the problems with doing that survey or that focus group is that more than likely, unless it's structured correctly, you're not going to find out this type of information, because the questions that you will likely ask are not going to be in alignment with truly unfolding and uncovering the real job that they want that product or service to fulfill. And instead, typically the line of questioning goes something like, what is an approach that you've tried before or an alternative you've tried before that may have worked or didn't work? And yes, let's say, for instance, in that example that I gave before of someone who is driving to work, they may say, oh, well, I would prep my food before I went to work, and that's something that didn't work for me. And unless we dive a lot deeper, we may walk away thinking that, okay, I'm going to create a service that does not require preparation, right? And we're thinking that it's the fact that our option is already prepared and ready to go versus someone who has to do a little bit more DIY work. Now, while that may be a component of why they have chosen to go one way or the other, really, like, we got down to it when it came to that job to be done, it was less about the preparation period and more so about the convenience and the things that occurred when they were driving, not making the spills, being easier to drink and things of that nature. It was more so tied to the ease of use than it was the preparation of use. And I know it seems very, very nitpicky to say it that way, but it's vastly different. When it comes to pitching your services, when it comes to marketing your business, creating your offer, those are two totally different viewpoints. And it doesn't mean that you can't incorporate both. But what I'm trying to stress is that we have to have a better understanding of what the behaviors are that are driving that change. And so a lot of times, this requires us to have a mindset of continual testing and iteration. Very rarely do we create a service or a product and that's it. Many times we give up on things that are working or can work too early, simply because we're not asking the right questions and we're not getting the answers that are going to make the biggest impact on whether or not our services succeed. So understanding this concept of the job to be done and thinking about how we can solve that makes a huge impact. Once again, it's not just about asking. It's also about observing. Many times, people don't know what to tell you when you're asking a direct question. Or maybe they, at face value, truly believe that their need is one thing when it's actually another. But it's up to us as consultants, just like we do when we're in the midst of a client engagement, to really peel back the layers and reveal exactly what is causing the issue for them, or what is the job that they're trying to solve. Because that requires, instead of just having an open-ended question, also looking at things such as, where is the market going? Right? Where are the shifts and the trends taking us? What's the feedback that we've heard in the past? And what are some of the internal challenges that are showing up now that maybe were not there before? One of the reasons why I've decided to go back to taking more consultation calls in the new year is because the industry has changed. And so I know for me, I need to do more work to figure out exactly what that looks like for the clients that I serve. I need to understand that better. One of the easiest ways to understand that is sales calls and in-person meetings. It's one of the reasons why with my course, The Consulting Code, it's focused on you getting sales and conversions through those two methods, because that's the part that many people try to avoid, right? We like referrals because that in essence comes as an easier sell typically. Someone else is vouching for you, they've talked about your services, and really it's just thinking more so about the compatibility piece. But when you have to go out there and actually pitch, sell, discuss your options, and convert people in a meeting directly, that tells you a lot. That line of questioning, that conversation reveals a lot over time. And you want to get that from a number of people, because another mistake we often make is that we take what we hear from one or two individuals and we assume the whole market feels that way. When that you could have just talked to two people who were outliers, who were part of the group that is on the skewed end of the graph. So it's important for us to get a better understanding of many of the internal challenges that are happening with individuals or with businesses. I always tell clients, don't go in and pitch anything if you don't know the internal workings in terms of what's going on the inside. That's your key to being able to convert. That's your key to being able to resonate and have that person remember your name and think about you as they move forward. So those are just some simple ways and examples as to how, we can begin to approach this whole process of better understanding right now as we move into 2024, what jobs need to be done. Because it's not going to be the same thing that it's been the last 3, 4, 5 years. Think about it. The fact that we have artificial intelligence that's part of our world now, the needs are changing. I have been in a test group for a very popular coach's artificial intelligence app. And that, as a matter of fact, I think it was just released this week, but I've been in it for a while. And just on the behind the scenes development of that product, I can tell you that there is a lot of capability to create tools that will be able to answer very general questions that we normally would pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to get in the past. That in and of itself means that the world is changing. The industries are changing. I'm talking about that in the coaching space, but that's happening in the STEM space, it's happening in HR, it's happening in education, it's happening everywhere, engineering, etc. We're in a different world now. And so we have to have a better understanding of what the jobs to be done are in this new world and how we're going to approach being able to serve that need. Okay, so I didn't want to go through this whole episode and just spout out a lot of information that's more, I would say, educational in nature and not give you actionable tips and where you need to go from this point moving forward. So what I want to share now are the 5 questions that I've been asking myself. And I'm hoping that you'll also be able to utilize these questions to think about how you can approach this whole concept of disruptive innovation and change and jobs to be done in your business. So the first question that I sat down to just ask myself is, what band-aids does my client or potential client, desired ideal client, however you want to phrase them, have in place right now that my service can address? This helps you think out of the box. It helps you look beyond the obvious competitor and think about how they are making do right now. Because one of the things that many people fail to consider is something else that I constantly teach clients is that when you're thinking about your service and you're pitching and you're making comparisons to what they may have currently or maybe another competitor they have been speaking to or potentially working with, we're not also considering how they're making do. And the thing about sales, especially when it's coming to sales of something that there is currently a path in place or a process in place that is being used in order to derive that result, you have to address that band-aid. You either need to point out how inefficient it is, how ineffective it is, how costly it is, but you can't ignore it. Because if they've been getting by with this Band-Aid in place, then although your offer may be great, there may not be an emotional pull or desire, or even a logical one, as to why they need to make the shift right now to do something different. So we have to know ahead of time what Band-Aids they currently have in place. And that's one of the first questions to think about outside of just competitors. What are these things that your companies that you're targeting or consumers that you're targeting, what do they already have in place? What are they doing that is achieving a similar outcome that your service can provide? Now, the second question is, how am I addressing my audience's needs from a holistic vantage point, right? One of the things that we didn't talk about in a lot of depth, but when it comes to the jobs to be done framework, there are really three different, I would say, focuses that your job can have. Those are functional, social, and emotional. And when we're thinking about addressing a need from a more holistic perspective, we want to ask ourselves, how are we functionally? That means just the actual process that the service is using, the functional aspect of what it's doing. How does my service hold up in that regard? And then we need to think about the social aspect. The social aspect gets into the status piece, right? How do people begin to perceive working with us, collaborating with us with regards to their social status and their relationships, maybe their influence? Then lastly, the emotional. The emotional piece is about how they feel about working with us. Are we able to tap into their aspirations or their goals when it comes to their business? Are we providing a certain level of security that makes them feel reassured and comforted? So that's the holistic piece. Are we addressing holistically the functional, social, and emotional aspects of the job that they want done? Question 3. How agile and responsive are my strategies to the client's business landscape or changing needs or market conditions? So we want to be agile. We want to be responsive. We want to be able to adjust to the needs that they have in the moment. And our ability to do that is going to help us sell our services a lot better, because we're not just selling a solution that is very strict and contained. We're allowing ourselves to offer something that can breathe, that can grow with them and with the changing market. The fourth question: are my services addressing emerging trends and innovations? Are we addressing those things that are on the horizon? Because it's not just about selling for today, but it's selling for tomorrow. It's not just about serving for today, but it's serving for tomorrow. That's how we'll continue to see growth. That's how you're going to have increased client lifetime value. That's how you're going to be able to generate referrals in the future. You have to be moving in a forward trajectory and not just focus on the past. And then last but not least, what are the deeper motivations for why my client is requesting my services? When we peel back the layers, what do they really want? If it's that high level executive, do they want to be regarded as the one who has been able to steer the ship in the right direction so that they can secure their position for years or maybe even decades to come because they've been able to have a massive transformation on their industry? Or are they looking to stand out in some other way and be highly regarded, or maybe become more wealthy and climb the ranks in their organization, or as an entrepreneur themselves, grow and expand beyond the current businesses that they have? What is that real deep motivation that they have for why they want you to help them? Those are the questions that I'm asking myself Those are the ones, and they're not easy. They're not easy to answer. But I think that if we do a good job of really diving into this, we can come out on the other side with a more innovative business and service that's going to make a lot of waves in the market this next year. And that's what we want. We want to grow. We want to move forward. So listen, if you didn't have your pencil ready, I want you right now to stop, grab that pencil or pen. I'm just going to run through these questions one more time just to list them out so that you have them written down. All right. You ready? Okay. 1, what band-aids does my client have in place that my service can address? What band-aids does my client have in place that my service can address? 2, how am I addressing my audience's needs from a holistic vantage point? That's functional, social, and emotional. How am I addressing my audience's needs from a holistic vantage point? That's functional, social, and emotional. Number 3, how agile and responsive are my strategies to the client's business landscape or changing needs and market conditions? How agile and responsive are my strategies to the client's business landscape or changing needs and market conditions? Number 4, are my services addressing emerging trends and innovations? Are my services addressing emerging trends and innovations? And number 5, this is the last one. What are deeper motivations for why a client is requesting my services? What are deeper motivations for why a client is requesting my services? All right, guys, I hope this helps. I hope you are able to take this information and think about how you can show up and really make some waves in this new year. I want to hear what you are writing down, what you're finding by running these questions through your head and brainstorming around those 5 things. So you have to let me know, whether that's on LinkedIn or Instagram or email. I want you to share with me what are some of those things that are just enlightening for you as you move forward. And then don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify or your review on Apple Podcasts. I know it sounds very simple, but it helps the podcast grow tremendously. And I would certainly love your help. And until next time, I want you to take care, take it easy, and know that you're doing that work. You're doing the work, and it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off big time. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Take care. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, take care.